What is up, guys? Welcome to my review for Titan Season 2, Episode 10, titled Fallen. So while Arrow got to prison in Season 7 and The Flash did it in Season 4, Titans is doing it way earlier in only the second season, as here Dick Grayson is in prison based off the last episode where he got himself arrested, and while I don't think he's going to spend really that long in prison, I'm guessing it's just this episode and the next episode, maybe Episode 12, maybe, and this is a very big stretch, Episode 13, as he gets down and becomes Nightwing, but I'm guessing it's just going to be this and the next episode. But the main takeaway from this prison storyline, if you want to call it that, is that Dick Grayson kind of getting his Nightwing name. It doesn't include Superman, which is different from the comics, and I'll get to what I think about this whole storyline in this review, and also the other two storylines, one of which involves Connor, Krypto, Gar, and Mercy Graves, and the other one involving Rachel and also Donna a little bit. Anyway, let's get into the review, starting with the Dick Grayson storyline. I don't know if we can consider this a trope at this point, because it seems like, again, like I said, every single superhero show has the main character going to prison at some point or another. For Flash, I thought it was good. For Arrow, it was great. But for Titans, I just think it's way too early to do something like this. It's such an interesting concept where the hero goes to the prison and meets up with a bunch of villains he put away, and he has to go up against them. They did that exactly on Arrow, and it ended up being very, very good. But to do that in Season 2 of a show just doesn't give the opportunity to have a lot of villains in this prison, specifically, and also because he was in a different city where he went to the prison. But anyway, that part of him going to prison, which is something that they could literally never do again at this point, because it'll just feel like they're doing the exact same thing they did before. So that concept in this show I thought was wasted in that respect, but it seems like they weren't using that for that. It seems like they put him in prison narratively because that's how they're giving him the Nightwing name. Now I expected either for Superman to appear, since it was confirmed Superman will appear in the shadows or something. I thought that maybe in some sort of scene like that, maybe a flashback, Dick tells us of a story that Superman told him where he told him about Nightwing. Another possibility, something that I thought was more interesting, is that Superboy, having the memories of Superman, tells Dick about the story of Nightwing and Flamebird from Krypton, but it seems like they're not doing anything Kryptonian here with Nightwing's name. Instead, it's Corto-Maltesian, which is definitely different, but I honestly have no problem with this whatsoever. In this episode, Dick is put into prison, and he's put in prison very, very quickly, as it doesn't seem like anybody knows about it in terms of the rest of the Titans, which I think is a little bit weird how fast he went to prison, and how it didn't seem to affect anybody. But anyway, he declines special treatment for being a former cop, and he's put in the same cell as a bunch of immigrants from Corto Maltese. Later, one of them is told to kill Dick. He doesn't do that, and then that guy tells Dick about the fact that if he goes back to Corto Maltese, which he will, they'll kill them, which is when Dick wants to intervene. And I think up until this point, the storyline is fine. Like I said, definitely a waste of a potentially great prison storyline, but definitely not bad either. That is until we get the storyline of Ala Azul from the cellmate of Dick's. This is when the storyline really picks up, and this is when it gets really interesting and really exciting. Now, if you put the words Ala Azul into Google Translate from Spanish, or you even know Spanish, which I don't, it translates to Blue Wing, which is eerily close to Nightwing. I mean, blue and night are not exactly the same thing, but they could definitely change it a little bit. I mean, Dick can, it seems like he will, but also Dick even says after he's told this story about a hero, he mentions it like he thinks it's crazy, but he says a bird who would fly down in the night, saying the word night, and this guy's name, it's Ala Azul, Blue Wing. This is 100% him getting his name, which is made all the more obvious by one of the cellmates drawing the logo of Al Azul, or maybe some sort of portrait of Al Azul. But this logo, or whatever it is again eerily similar to the Nightwing symbol, or at least some version of the Nightwing symbol, and that again is definitely him getting his name, and maybe even the inspiration for the design of his logo on his new costume, which, like I said, even though this doesn't include Superman, I do really like him getting his name in this way, because while it would have been cool to see Superman or even use Connor in that way, I think this is like literally the exact same thing where he's told about a hero from some sort of other culture, and he takes upon that name, and he's inspired by that character and that hero. And while it doesn't include Krypton, I don't think it needs to, and this is just as good. But the entire time, the cellmates of Dix are talking about escaping, and their belief in their escape is all boiled down to Al Azul, as they think that that Al Azul, whoever it is, will help them. So they try to escape. It doesn't go their way until Dix shows up, and in some self-fulfilling prophecy kind of way, as he's told about this hero, and then he becomes this hero, Dick Grayson essentially becomes the Al Azul in the storyline, meaning he's Blue Wing or Nightwing in this storyline, meaning that in this episode, Dick Grayson, kind of in some sort of backwards way, is already Nightwing, and then in the next couple episodes, he will get his costume and officially get the name Nightwing, changing from Al Azul just a little bit. But not only that, I thought this fight scene was really cool. Like, there's a shot of Dick Grayson, like, flipping a guy as he does a flip as well. It's a really, really cool looking shot, and in the end, while all these other cellmates escape and Dick is confined and brought back to prison, I thought this storyline in general, up until the point where he was given the name or told about the Blue Wing Al Azul, wasn't exactly great and kind of a waste of the prison storyline, but in the end, I think it became a really, really good storyline, and I really liked how they used him being in prison and these cellmates and Cartel Maltese and the legend of Al Azul to give him the inspiration for becoming Nightwing, and everything we've seen up until this point, I am getting more and more excited to see Nightwing on screen in the next couple episodes, probably for the first time in the finale, which is actually titled Nightwing. But all in all, definitely a good storyline, and definitely the best part of this episode. So then there's the Rachel storyline, which I honestly thought was kind of, maybe not bad necessarily, but definitely not good, and not even okay. It was mediocre. It was kind of boring, honestly. Rachel goes to the soup kitchen and meets this girl. Turns out this girl has an either abusive boyfriend or brother or something. They never really explain what he is to her, but Rachel stops him, and then a gargoyle is given life by Rachel. This is really the only cool part of this storyline. This gargoyle being given life by Rachel and killing that guy. It was definitely pretty brutal. I mean, not that I had that actual scene because we don't see it, but what we see later, Donna Troy finds him, and he's just mauled to death. One of his legs is torn off. It's definitely really brutal. But all in all, this storyline was kind of boring, and honestly, I don't know why it's here. It really reminds me of this one episode of Stranger Things Season 2, which is definitely the lowest rated episode of the show ever, definitely the least popular episode, where 11 goes off on her own, finds this ragtag group of teenagers, and hangs out with them for a while, and this just feels very, very similar to that. And similarly, this I don't think was very good. I don't know what they're going with this. I don't know what they're doing here with Rachel giving life to this gargoyle. I don't know where it's all leading to. Maybe it's leading to Trigon's return, which if this show gets a bigger budget, then I wouldn't be opposed to, because Trigon didn't look good at all in season 1, but with a bigger budget, he could definitely return and be a good villain. But all in all, I just think that even with that, this storyline was not a good one, and certainly the worst part of this episode. And honestly, if I knew where they're going with this, then I'd be fine, but right now, I have no idea where they're going with this, and it feels weird because we got nothing from Hawk or Dove or Jason or Rose in this episode. It could have been cool to see Jason and Rose in this episode or in the last episode, but we got nothing out of it, and the fact that we got this Rachel storyline instead just bugs me a little bit because it was boring and it was kind of mediocre. So then there's the Connor, Krypto, Gar, and Mercy storyline, which is good, but it begins with a very unusual scene. It shows that she has a wife and 2 daughters, which is fine. It seems like they're maybe trying to make her more three-dimensional than she typically is, because usually she's really just like either an android robot bodyguard for Lex Luthor, or just a typical badass bodyguard for Lex Luthor, and there's really nothing outside of that. But maybe on this show, I mean, they're giving her a family, they're making her more three-dimensional for some reason or another. But that's not the problem. The problem is the dialogue here in this scene is very unusual. One of the daughters asks for a vegan game, which is like such a weird thing to say. And overall, aside from maybe making her more three-dimensional, I don't know why this scene exists. Then we cut to Connor telling Krypto to leave, which is definitely a really, really good scene. I mean, both these characters are great, and they formed a bond over the course of the last couple episodes, and seeing a scene like this one, it definitely is a little bit, ever so slightly emotional. Anyway, after Connor and Krypto depart, we get what is maybe the best scene, the best moment of this episode as Krypto goes to Titan's Tower. Gar gets this alert that somebody's at the door, and he sees in the camera that it is Krypto. It's just a really cute, funny moment, and also the fact that Krypto knew to come back to Titan's Tower, even though he's really been here just like once or twice. I think that was really cool, and Krypto has gotta be one of the best characters on this show. Anyway, using Krypto, Gar finds Connor, and Cadmus comes after them. Then Cadmus attacks Titan's Tower, and Connor, Gar, and Krypto all fight them, which is a pretty cool fight scene. Connor using his powers is really cool to see. Krypto has this moment where he jumps on one of the guards. It's always so cool to see Krypto in action. And Gar, after having this insane Power Ranger moment, which is a little bit weird, he actually turns into an animal, which is insane. He literally never does that. And while it is a tiger, it seems like this will be the last episode where the tiger is the only thing he could turn into, not counting the finale of season 1 or the premiere of this season where he turned into a snake, which is never mentioned up until this point. Maybe like nobody realized, maybe Gar didn't even realize that he turned into a snake or something. I don't know, but I'm hoping based off of what we see here, after this, they take all of them down except for Connor, who is then convinced to go back to Cadmus. Then Mercy talks to Gar about some sort of thing, even mentioning Niles Calder, which is cool because he's never mentioned on the show, and it really feels like the Doom Patrol part of Beast Boy's backstory was completely forgotten, especially on Doom Patrol, which Beast Boy has never been mentioned at all. But anyway, after this, which is definitely a cool scene, it seems like Mercy has plans for Gar, which is probably going to end up with him unlocking all the rest of the animals, including a snake and everything else he could turn into, maybe even the same dog that Krypto is. I don't know if he could turn into a Kryptonian dog, because in Young Justice he could turn into other aliens, but that would definitely be something that would be really cool to see. But anyway, I'm really glad they're not only giving Gar something to do in these episodes, but also it seems like they're making him Beast Boy instead of just Tiger and then a one-time Snake Boy. But overall, this was also a good storyline with some moments that I didn't love, but also moments that I did. In conclusion, this episode was certainly better than the last one, as while the Rachel storyline wasn't good, the Dick Grayson storyline of him getting his Nightwing name is definitely very exciting, even if it is kind of a waste of the prison storyline potential, while the Connor, Krypto, Mercy, and Gar storyline had its ups and downs, but overall, I do like where that is heading. The problem with this episode and the last episode is the weird pacing of the season, as the focus shift from Slade Wilson to Dick Grayson is, I think, a little bit unusual. The whole storyline focused on Slade Wilson being the main antagonist, being the main source of conflict, until it seems like he won. He just defeated the Titans, he broke them up, and now he's done for, or he's just done. And it shifted from focusing on him as the main source of conflict to Dick Grayson, which I thought was a weird thing to do for the pacing of this season. And while I feel like it all will pay off very well with Dick Grayson triumphantly returning as Nightwing and defeating Deathstroke, I think that overall the pacing of the season will make these couple episodes, episode 9, 10, maybe 11, those episodes will be remembered as, and not counting episode 1, the weak points of the season, but hopefully that can end up making for a good finale in episodes 12 and 13. But I will give this episode an 8.2 out of 10, definitely better than the last episode, but definitely also worse than episodes 2 to 8. Anyway, let me know your thoughts about the episode in the comments down below, and if you like this video, make sure to leave a like, share, and subscribe, and thanks for watching.